Hello, my name is Roman Mironov. This video is about comparing global settings and project-specific settings in OmegaT. Right now, OmegaT makes it possible to have project-specific settings for two options: segmentation rules and file filters. In this video, I will focus on these two settings. Unless you instruct OmegaT to use project-specific settings, it uses global settings. These settings are stored in the configuration folder of the program. By default, this program is located in this folder, Roaming OmegaT. And in my case, I use a custom folder located here in Program Files, and I call this folder Config. In my case, these global settings are stored here. And these are the file called filters XML, which is of course for file filters, and the file segmentation conf, which is of course for segmentation. You can access global settings even without opening a project. You go to Options, Segmentation. These settings are the global settings. And the same goes for file filters. You go to Options, File Filters. Again, these settings are global. If you change any of the settings, you will notice that the respective file in the configuration folder changes as well. Let's see how this works by changing an option in the file filters. First, note this file filters XML, more specifically its size and its time and date stamp. Okay, I'm going to enable remove leading and trailing tags, and then I save and reload the project. Okay, I can now go back to my filters XML file and see what happened. As I see, the file size changed as well as the time and date. So this means that by making a change in the global settings in OmegaT, OmegaT saved this change in the file filters XML in its configuration folder. And the same goes for the segmentation conf file. If I add a segmentation rule or delete a segmentation rule, the change will be saved to this global settings file. And when you open a project that doesn't have project-specific settings, OmegaT applies global settings by default. So whenever you open a project, OmegaT usually uses this file and this file, the global settings in these two files. Now let's look at the project-specific settings. Suppose you use OmegaT on two computers and one of them is a server. While working on a project located on the server, you add a segmentation rule to your global segmentation settings. For example, I want to instruct OmegaT to break this segment into two parts and break it after U for some reason. Okay, I go to Options, Segmentation. Alright, I'll go to English, Add, Okay, so for the pattern before, I'm going to use ipMaceU. For the pattern after, a space, and then I enable the checkbox. And I click OK and reload the project. Okay, as you see, this rule now works, and the segment gets segmented after U. Where did exactly OmegaT save this file? Of course, because I made the change in the global settings. OmegaT saved it to this file, to its global segmentation conf file. It is very important to understand that this file is stored locally in the configuration folder of OmegaT. In my case, this is program files, and by default it is under roaming OmegaT, and this is a local folder. Now I want to open the same project from another computer, and for the sake of this example, I'm going to run OmegaT from a different folder. And of course, its configuration folder does not have that segmentation conf file because it was saved in a different folder with a different version of OmegaT. This is even a different version, so I'm simulating the second computer. I open the project, the same project, and of course I get the original segmentation. The rule that I created on the first computer does not apply here because that rule was saved in the file with the global settings for that computer. If I go to Options, Segmentation on the second computer, you'll see that the list of rules is different, and of course if I access the English rules, there is no such rule. And the same goes for file filters. I'm going to return to the first computer now to show you how this works with regard to file filters. Now I'm at the first computer and I'm going to tweak the file filters here. Again, the global ones. I'm going to Options, File Filters, and here, for example, I'm going to play with this option, Remove Leading and Trailing Tags. I'm going to disable it. Disable it. Okay. And please note this segment, first segment. As you see, after I disabled the option Remove Leading and Trailing Tags, this segment contains a leading tag here. So if I make a translation with this tag, it's going to be saved to the translation memory with this tag. Okay, and if I close this project and reopen it, I get the same tag here because of the settings, because I saved them again locally on the first computer. Now I'm going to switch to the second computer. This is the second computer and I'm opening the same project from that computer. As you see, on this second computer there is no tag. Why? Because in the global settings for file filters this option is enabled, whereas in the second, on the first computer, this option was disabled. And this is why OmegaT removes that leading tag on the second computer and we get two different segments, whereas my translation from the made at the first computer had the tag, but in this case there is no tag, so obviously the segments are different, and this is clearly a problem. To avoid such situations, you need to save changes that you make as project-specific settings. This is how you do it. If you want to make a specific change, you go to Project, properties, segmentation, or file filters. This is how you access the project-specific settings through project, properties, segmentation, or file filters, and not through options, file filters, segmentation. As you remember, I made two changes in the global settings on this first computer. I added a segmentation rule, this one, which makes OmegaT break a segment after U, and I also disabled this checkbox, remove leading and trailing tags. Now I'm going to make these two changes project specific. And before I do so, I want you to note that this subfolder of the project that I'm working on, the OmegaT subfolder, does not have any project specific settings yet. Okay, now I'm going to project, properties, segmentation, and I enable this checkbox. I make the segmentation rules project specific. Enable. Okay, and reload the project. Now, as you see, OmegaT saved the segmentation conf file as the project specific setting file here in the OmegaT subfolder by copying it from the configuration folder on the local computer. Okay, so it's simple. What it did was it took this file and copied it here, the same file, making it project specific. And I will do the same for the file filters. Project, properties, file filters, make the file filter settings project specific. Okay, and reload the project. And here's the second file, filters XML. OmegaT saved the second project specific setting file here in the OmegaT subfolder of the project. All further changes that I will make to the project specific settings will be saved to these files. And now, of course, let's try to open the same project on the second computer. As you remember, this is the first computer, and when I opened the project at the second computer, I had problem. I had a different segmentation in this segment and different segmentation here. Now I saved the project specific settings to the OmegaT subfolder of the project, and now the project has project specific settings. Okay, let's go to the second computer, close the project here, and open it at the second computer. Alright, exactly what I needed. The segmentation is the same, of course, both here and here, because even though, please note that the global settings are different, this setting, the global setting in file filter says to remove the leading tag. It is not removed because this setting takes priority. The project specific setting, project specific file filters take priority, and here the checkbox for remove leading and trailing tags is not enabled. This is why this tag appears here. And the same goes for segmentation, even though in the global settings there is no such rule that makes this segment break after you. In the project specific segmentation settings, there is such rule. Here it is. And it makes OmegaT break the segment as required. So whenever I or anyone else opens this project on another computer, OmegaT will use the project-specific settings, these two project-specific files, and irregardless of the global settings on that computer. And any changes made to the project-specific settings will be saved to these files. And of course, to do any further project-specific settings, you want to go to Project, Properties, Segmentation, or File Filters. For example, if you want to add a segmentation rule, you add it to the project-specific segmentation settings, add, and so on. Alright, now I want to give two recommendations with regard to project-specific settings. I recommend keeping file filters and segmentation project-specific at all times. I think it's a good idea even if you use OmegaT on just one computer and do not share your projects with anyone. Just an example. Imagine that you added quite a few segmentation rules in a particular project, but you saved them as global settings. These global segmentation rules may backfire in future projects. They will ruin the segmentation, and you might end up spending quite some time pinpointing and fixing the problems those global rules created. And another good reason for keeping file filters and segmentation project specific is the ability to create projects using a project template. And by project template, I mean something like this. You have a template that includes all the necessary folders for a OmegaT project. And in the OmegaT subfolder, it already includes project-specific files, settings, segmentation conf, and filters XML. Instead of creating each new project through OmegaT by going to Project, New, you can copy this template to the desired folder. For example, I'm going to create a new project in my projects folder by copying this template. Okay, I copied it and I will call it a new project. When I open this project, OmegaT will automatically use the project-specific settings from the OmegaT subfolder, this one and this one, instead of the global settings in the configuration folder of OmegaT on that computer. In this template, I have the project-specific settings files that I improve continually. For example, if I come up with a great segmentation rule, I add it to this project template. I simply open it, even though it doesn't have any files, I can change the segmentation rules and file filters freely and simply save it, even though there are no files. Okay, the next time I create a project by copying this template, as I just did, the rules and the file filter settings are guaranteed to be in the project-specific settings of that project, irregardless of the computer that I create or access this project from. And compare this to the process of creating a project through OmegaT. In this case, OmegaT always uses the global settings on that local computer, which might not have the latest segmentation rules or file filter settings, especially if you use OmegaT on several computers. So, again, my recommendations are to keep file filters and segmentation project specific and maintain a project template like this one with project-specific settings, and update those settings in the template to keep your segmentation rules and file filters current for all future projects. Alright, this is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to comment this video or ask any questions in the comments below, and you can also rate this video. Bye bye.